According to Terrence T. Gorski, author of Getting Love Right, up to 80% of Americans say they come from dysfunctional families. And if you grew up hearing things like, you were a mistake, because of you, I don't have the life I wanted, or you're the reason your father left, maybe you thought that was just how parents talk. Maybe you normalized the pain growing up. You might even think, I would never say something like that to my child. But what if some of the things we think are harmless actually aren't? What if the words you believe are normal are the very ones your child will carry with them for life? Not because you mean harm, but because no one ever told you otherwise. I'm Jourdan Travers, a psychotherapist, and today we're breaking down the science behind 3 parenting phrases that sound normal, but can harm a child's self-worth for years to come. The first, because I said so. Parenting is hard. There are moments when you're tired, overwhelmed, and just trying to get through the day. And in those moments, words fly out, often without thinking. When you say things like, this is my house, you live here because of me, or you will obey because I said so, they might seem harmless, just something parents say when their patience runs out, and you may think it's the quickest path to get your way. But one study shows it can actually do more harm than just end an argument. In Montreal, researchers wanted to understand something most people often overlook. What happens to a child, not when they're hit, but when they're constantly spoken to with anger, blame, or control? So they went straight to the source. They asked 144 10-year-olds, all in 5th grade, about how their parents talked to them. Not just yelling, but things like sarcasm, name-calling, or threatening language. They also looked at whether these kids were being physically punished at home. Then they compared those answers to 2 powerful markers: each child's self-esteem, measured by a well-known questionnaire, and their actual school grades in both math and French. Now, here's the part that matters. Even when physical punishment wasn't involved, verbal aggression alone had a strong negative effect. Kids who were yelled at, controlled, or criticized more often felt worse about themselves in 3 out of 6 areas of self-esteem. And not only that, they also had lower grades in language class, where communication and confidence matter most. One phrase repeated enough times can shrink a child's voice. It tells them, your opinion doesn't matter, your feelings don't count, or obey, don't question. And that belief, it doesn't just affect their behavior, it reshapes the way that they see themselves. Number 2, you think you've had a bad day when I was your age. It's a phrase many parents say with the best intentions. Maybe they're trying to offer perspective. Maybe they're reaching for connection through their own pain. It sounds like wisdom, a reminder that life has always been hard. Sometimes it even comes with lines like, grow up and stop being this way, or man up, otherwise you're not my son. But that's not what children hear. What they hear is, your pain doesn't count. What they feel is, there is no room for my emotions here. And now we have research that shows just how deep this impact goes. In a 2016 study, researchers observed 65 mothers and their children, ages 4 to 7, during a play-based task. The game was designed to be light and interactive, but also just challenging enough to stir natural emotions, things like frustration, excitement, and disappointment. They weren't looking for harsh discipline or yelling, but everyday common interactions. How does a parent respond when their child is just a little upset? Here's what they found. When mothers validated their child's feelings by noticing, naming, or simply acknowledging the emotion, their children became better at recognizing and expressing emotions later on. But when mothers dismissed or ignored those feelings, even subtly, their children showed lower emotional awareness. They struggled to name what they were feeling, and they were more likely to shut down or brush past it entirely. So in short, they learned not to deal because no one showed them that their feelings mattered. So when a child opens up and doesn't feel seen, they begin to second guess their emotions, to bury discomfort, to act fine when they're hurting. And while the intention may be love, the impact is often loneliness. Third, after everything I've done for you, where does this come from? often from a place of fear. When children grow up and start making their own choices, it can feel like they're slipping away, like they don't need you anymore. That helplessness, watching the child you raised pull away to not listening to you anymore or to questioning you back, comes out through phrases like, I gave you everything and this is how you repay me. It doesn't always sound angry. Sometimes it's said through tears. Sometimes it's masked as love. But what it often carries underneath is stay close. To a child, though, it doesn't feel like love. It feels like emotional debt, guilt, and obligation. A debt they must clear before they're permitted to live their own lives. Like your care came with conditions, and instead of safety, they feel shame. In a 2-part 2017 study, researchers from the University of Houston investigated a painful question. Did you ever feel like you had to earn your parents' love? In the first part of the study, 91 young adults were asked open-ended questions about their childhoods. About 1 in 5 said yes. Yes if they got good grades, yes if they obeyed, and yes if they didn't disappoint. Participants described feeling that if they weren't performing well or living up to expectations, that they didn't deserve love. In the second part, the researchers expanded the study to 211 people, asking them not just about conditional love, but also about their home life growing up. Did they feel supported? Could they confide in anyone? And was there emotional warmth or conflict and neglect? The findings were clear. Those who felt that love depended on meeting expectations, whether in school, behavior, or emotions, were far less likely to feel secure in their worth later in life, especially if they also grew up in homes filled with criticism or conflict. The researchers called this parental conditional regard. It didn't just impact how children behaved, it shaped how they saw themselves. It planted the belief that I'm only lovable if I get it right. So when a parent says, after everything I've done for you, even if it's said with pain, what the child often hears is, you owe me your happiness, you owe me obedience, and you owe me love in return. But to a child, love that has to be repaid doesn't feel like love. It feels like guilt, like an emotional debt they'll never stop paying off. And that belief, it doesn't just stay in childhood. It follows them into friendships, work, and love. And if any of these phrases feel familiar, you're not alone. And no, it doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It means you were spoken to this way once too. And maybe no one ever showed you a different way. I'm Jourdan Travers. I'm the clinical director at Awake Therapy. And if this video helped you reflect, tap like, and subscribe for more on parenting, healing, and emotional growth. And let me know in the comments if you want a part 2, because we're just getting started. Bye.